Alright, in this video we're going to go ahead and finish up our key features of functions. So this is day 2. There isn't a day 2 in your note packet, so just go ahead and continue on where we left off in the last video, in the last lesson. So that would be, we're going to be looking at increasing and decreasing functions. Last thing I believe we talked about in the previous lesson was our relative maximum min. And so here, some other key features of functions are that there are times that we need to be talking about when a function is increasing and decreasing. And so if we look at these two functions here, we are told that this one is increasing. And it makes sense. Remember, we read on a graph from left to right. And so as we're going on a graph, we can kind of see that, yep, that one's going up. We kind of already talked about that a little bit before when we looked at all those stories and when is it going up, when is it going down, what does that mean? And so this is very much related to that. And so decreasing again, left to right, we see that we are going down in that function. So when we will be given graphs and we will be asked, what portion of the graph is increasing, what portion of the graph is decreasing, because as we see on this next graph, that we'll have graphs that are both, as we're going from left to right, as we're traveling on the graph, we're going up on that portion, down on that portion, and then back up. And so we will want to know, when is that happening? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some problems. In this graph, we want to know, where is the function increasing? Where is it decreasing? And we're going to go ahead and highlight the increasing part in one color and decreasing part in a different color. If you have different colors, you can go ahead and do that. So I will go ahead and highlight. So we have increasing again, we're going from left to right. So as we're traveling on the graph, I can see that this portion, as we're going up right here, is definitely increasing. As I continue, that part's decreasing, and so the other portion, I'm going to use this and see if it, oh, there we go. Coloring is being a little, there we go. So that portion is increasing, and so using a different color, this portion here would be decreasing. And so I can go ahead and label that. So this portion is increasing. Over here we are increasing as well. And then this portion here is decreasing. Now, what I'd like us to do when we're doing this increasing and decreasing is that most of the time when we do this is that we're talking about what portion of the x-axis is actually increasing, what portion on the x-axis is actually decreasing. And so when we do this, we're actually going to kind of split this where we see the change happen. Okay. And so as we kind of come down and we see this here, so this portion, as we've talked about, is increasing. This portion is increasing as well. And so what we want to do is we want to say, okay, for what x values are we actually increasing? And so we come down from that portion and we find out, okay, what is that x value right here? Well, this is -2, that's -4, so in between is -3. So I would say maybe about -2.6 or so. If we come up here, again, this is 1, that is 2, so I'd say that's about 1.5. So if we're talking about our actual x-axis, this portion of these x values have, that is where our graph is increasing, same as over here. Let's see, my marker is, I don't know what just, okay, there we go. There we go. I don't know what just happened, but that portion of the graph is increasing as well. And then in between, that portion of the graph is decreasing. So we just go ahead and we write that out. So we say, okay, let me change to pin, there we go. increasing, our increasing is when our x values are less than -3, are less than -3, and greater than 1.5. And then we are decreasing when we are between, oh, that's not -3, sorry about that. We said that was -2.6. Sorry about that, -2.6 and 1.5. So we are decreasing when we are between, if I can spell right, between that -2.6 and 1.5. All right, so for that graph, we are increasing when we are smaller than the 2.6 and greater than the 1.5, and then we are decreasing when we're between that 2.6 and the 1.5, and so that is how we figure out our increasing and decreasing for that particular function. And so we have another one right here, so we're going to go ahead and highlight where we are increasing and decreasing, again going along my graph. And so if we kind of just travel from left to right, we see, oh, yep, I'm going down there, so that would be decreasing. I'm traveling up here, and then we're going back down. So using my highlighter again, that portion is decreasing, as well as this portion here. So I'm going to use the same color. Again, if you have colors, I'm going to use that, and that portion is increasing. And so we go ahead and we label that. So this one is not increasing, but decreasing, as well as this one over here, decreasing. And then we are increasing on this portion over here. Again, I would like to go ahead and get those actual values, so I'm going to bring up to my x-axis. So that's 4, this is -2, so in between again is about -3. So this here is 3.5. So I say that's about -3.75, it looks like. And then coming over here, coming down, so that's -2, so this would be -1, so that here would be -0.5. So I'd say that would probably be -0.25, a quarter. And so that's what it looks like to me. So again, we for our decreasing, and I'm just doing decreasing first because that happens first. You can do increasing just like we did on the last one. You can do increasing first, but here I'm going to do decreasing. So decreasing, so that is going to be when we are less than, we said -3.75, so that is when we are less than -3.75, and when we are greater than, we said -0.25, and greater than -0.25. That is when we are decreasing. And then we are increasing when we are between, we said -3.75 and -0.25. All right, and that is our increasing and decreasing. All right, so yes, okay, so and I believe this is the last thing that we'll be looking at for our key features is positive and negative function values. And so sometimes we talk about when our function has positive values and sometimes negative values. And these positive values of the function are the ones that are above the x-axis, and the negative values of the function are the ones that are below the x-axis. So to be able to determine where we are above and below, we need to know our, so I would add this to your notes, need to identify our x-intercept, which we talked about in the previous video. Because if I look at my first function, here is my x-intercept. And so the part of the function that is negative is going to be the portion below the x-axis over here. And so that is my negative portion. And then the portion that is on the other side, which is above my x-axis, is my positive portion of the graph. And so I need to know where that x-intercept is so I can determine what portion of the graph is negative, what portion of the graph is positive. So that's what we have on that first one. If we look at our second graph, here's my x-axis down here. And this graph, nothing goes below my x-axis, so the entire graph, all the function is positive. The whole thing is positive because all of it is above my x-axis. And so on this last one, we actually have several chunks. So we have some x-intercepts here, here, and here. So we have 3 x-intercepts for this one here. And so we have this portion of the graph here that is below. We also have this portion here, if it will, work for me. There we go. That portion of the graph is also below the x-axis. And then we have this portion here and here that is above. And so the ones above, again, are the positive portions of the function, and the ones below are negative portions of the function. And so we want to go ahead and determine where that's going to be. So on this last one, I have, let's see, my x-intercept looks to be -4 here. Here it looks to be -1, and here it looks to be +3. And so I would say that we are negative on this function when we are less than, -4, and between -1 and 3. And we are positive when we are between -4 and -1, and when we are greater than +3. And so those are the portions of our graph that are positive and negative. And so that's what we would want to be doing with those. Again, I would like you to identify what portion of the x-axis gives us those positives and negatives. So we have this one here. It says find where the function is positive and where it is negative. We're going to highlight, but then I would also like you to identify exactly where we are positive and where we are negative according to the x-axis. So first off, let's identify our x-intercepts. So I have one here that looks to be, let's see, we have 10, so that looks to be 2, -2, -4, 6, 8, 10. Yep. So that one looks to be -2, going by 2. So that one here, next one would be +4. So we have our 2 x-intercepts. And then we go ahead and we highlight. So above my x-axis, so let's just quickly distinguish. So there's my x-axis with my x-intercepts. And above the x-axis, we have that portion here, that portion here. So both of those are positive. And then the portion below my x-axis, this portion down here, would be the negative portion of the graph. Let's go ahead and write that out. So for my positive, we are positive when we are, 2 when we are smaller than 2, and when we are greater than 4. So less than -2 and greater than +4. And then we are negative when we are between those two values. When we are between -2 and 4. All right, and so that's where we are negative and positive. Okay, and so you have one more to practice, 2 more. Yep, so 2 more to practice, so go ahead and try those on your own. Identify where you're positive and negative, just like we did on this portion of the graph and the ones that we had here. All right, and that will be the end of the notes for 2.4.